of it was it just established the hypocrisy that I was carrying. And like I said, I was fine if I benefited from it. Anytime it was exercised in front of me, um, I had such a disdain, and those things kind of led to just me really just doing some work on myself. Obviously thanks to Deborah. I never really wanted to pen this story and tell why I did it, right? And she kept saying, Jerome, you gonna have to tell, you gonna have to show, the human elements to all of it. And my reasoning for not wanting to tell why I did it was because I didn't want people to think that I felt justified, or I didn't want to make excuses. Again, there's so much power and accountability, and I just walked around like I did it. I can't make excuses. I can't blame anyone else. It's my fault. And she just said, just tell why, not necessarily tell the truth, but tell why. And in doing that, I found I was able to really get to the root at one of my character flaws. And obviously, I'm saying sins of the heart, if they show itself at the wrong time, it could cost any person something. And so, that was just kind of like, one of the things from writing, like being the victim, the villain. I mean, the victim, the hero and villain in your own story. It could really take its toll on you. But I think, what it did was it helped me kind of really, address stuff that was hidden behind the mask. And I think in my vulnerability and me being transparent, and me just, for lack of a better way of saying it, being real, I think it allowed me to take a deep breath, because like I said, once my kids cut the location monitor off my ankle, I could care less what anybody else had to say. And so that was kind of really the last thing that I was holding on to from a guilt standpoint, in terms of just imagine like walking into work one day at TD Garden and thinking it's a normal day. We're about to play the Houston Rockets that night, and the FBI is there at your job, and the next thing you know, you eventually get arrested, and you being walked in the court shackled, hands and feet, and just going through like so much, from an emotional standpoint, like contemplating suicide, saying that they're going to give you 40 years in jail, and you disrupted your entire family's sense of normalcy, and no more private school for your kids, and no more family vacations, just their whole lives kind of disrupted because of your failure in character. It could drive you crazy. And so, I'm not going to keep putting y'all to sleep, but just, penning the book, allowed me to address so many different things. And I'm just hopeful that in my obedience, that, God will just take it and let it be for whoever he designed it to be for.
I got a quick question for you, Pooh.
Mm-hmm.
You had accomplished a great deal, and you had earned a certain status, okay? And with all that you had accomplished up to this point, and what you had achieved in your career and all the obstacles that you had overcome, and then when you had what you call in the book, a decision that you made, it was a character decision, what possessed you, or what made you think that, what you were doing was the right thing, and how would that affect other people, once you realized the ramifications of what you did?
So this is why I did it, right? So I had a kid who I was trying to get a summer job, right? And again, I'm only really trying to replicate what was done for me when I was a student there, right? There's a bunch of college coaches on here, and we all, sit in parents' living rooms and say, if you entrust your child in our hands, we're going to do right by them. And I'm recruiting kids that I'm trying to convince them to make a 40-year decision as opposed to a 4-year decision. And oh, by the way, right, the parents have to pay something for school, right? And saying, you come to Penn, 300,000 alumni, and any interest that they have, I'm gonna be able to be the extension cord to plug them into, the power source. And that was kind of what I stood on, especially anytime I was recruiting a young man who had scholarship offers, right? And again, I know how much Penn costs a year, and it's pretty significant. And not everybody had to pay the full boat, but this is my pitch. I know we're all in the business of sales, but I'm meaning these words because I lived it, right? And so, fast forward, I had got tons and tons of calls from even non-student athlete parents to try to see if I could help them in terms of this admissions process. And so I get a call one day from a particular family, and their daughter had got deferred. And I say, you can call the dean, kind of, help us out, and we'll help the program out, and so forth and so on. I say, all right, cool. So I call up campus, and again, it's not necessary. I'm not taking full credit for bringing her application to the dean's attention, but I was, I was loyal. I told him, I'll get it. I'll make that call. Fast forward, she gets into school, and so now that following spring or the next year, I got a kid from California who's looking for a job in kind of like marketing and music, and I said, I know just the person who to call. So, I pick the phone up, I make that phone call, and that parent is in a position to help this young man out. And they don't do it. And, excuse my French for lack of a better way of saying it. I'm like, oh, what the fuck? Like, what good is it, for us to have this relationship if I can't, what's his GPA? We give these interns out, in January, it's too late. I know he can get it done, and he doesn't do it, right? And especially, again, it's an African-American kid who doesn't come from access and privilege, and I'm trying to help him. And again, mind you, when I'm at Penn as a player, like, Coach Dumpf and above board, like, he connected all of us, right, to our alumni base. And he encouraged us not to go through this experience in the basketball bubble. I'm only trying to duplicate what was laid out for me. And so now as I pick up the phone, and he's like, no, he can't help. I'm like, wait a minute, she's in school. I thought this is how it goes. Like, I helped y'all out. Now I'm trying to help out somebody who actually needs it, right? And oh, by the way, like I said, a large number of kids who I recruited that came from access and privilege, right? After their freshman year, after they got in school, they quit the team. They didn't make a difference whether they was in the rotation or not. They used the process to get what they wanted. So we had almost changed the whole recruiting model to be like, you know what? I'm not recruiting no more rich kids, right? But I can't really do that because I played with a young man at Penn who came from access and privilege, and he was a beast, right? So it's like, I can't really shut that down. But now I'm pissed, right? So when I got the young man who needed a job and the parent said they're not helping, I'm like, well, what the fuck good is our relationship then? I ain't doing it no more. Like, no more. I'm not helping nobody else out if they not gonna help out the kids. Really, that's where the sins of my own heart come into play, right? And so just think about it. Like, I was assistant coach in college for 3 months, and then I get the interim job as the head coach. Disney couldn't have wrote that script. That just doesn't happen, right? And so in the book, I say, how could somebody who was handpicked, and I use the story of David to give this analogy, right? Somebody that was handpicked, the AD walked in, and it wasn't the associate head coach or the other assistant that had 5 years of experience. I was the full-time non-paid assistant, basically jumped over 2 guys, and he picked me to be the interim head coach. That doesn't happen, right? So how could somebody who was handpicked get out of alignment? And that's because, the further and further we get away from our elevation, the more we think we operate in our own strength. Like I lost sight of just his activity in terms of that. Again, as even today, like I scratch my head, like, I don't know if anybody else had uh, that happen to him ever. And again, I don't know. Like that's how kind of foreign it was to me for that to transpire. And so someone who was basically gifted the position, right, is walking around with such arrogance, like getting pissed off by the processes, right, that they feel as though that they could just, move about, their own way, right? And so when the family doesn't help, I get pissed off, right? And then I get introduced to somebody who's willing to help and do whatever to help the kids. All right, you want your son to come? All right, well, what are you going to do for these kids? And really, to be honest with you, again, the whole exercise, like I was wrong, right? That wasn't my job to make those decisions. And I don't want to bore y'all with the whole academic index for Ivy League schools and what you have to come in one standard deviation away from the mean of the overall income and class average and all that other stuff. But the reality of it is, I still could have recruited the kid as an academic booster for our real income and class, but I just didn't kind of make that distinction because the dad was willing to help, and I said yes.
Next question, Mike Lopez.
I can't hear him. He muted.
Yeah, Mike, you're muted.
All right, Coach. Coach Allen, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us to that degree. I'll just ask you, man. I mean, after you started writing the book and the feelings that you had, and once you finished, did you feel like kind of that self-defeatism or like condemnation was kind of lifted off you, or you still kind of deal with that?
No, like to be honest with you, and I'm not saying this with any ounce of arrogance. As I went through the whole ordeal, even prior to writing the book, again, you got to imagine, like, I don't know, even as I think about it sometimes, like going to work every day, being connected to the highest platform in terms of the sport, right? And every platform writing about it, Sports Illustrated, the Bloomberg News, the New York Times, to ESPN, to everybody, right? Walking through the storm, still trying to like smile, hold my head up, and not knowing if I was going to go to jail or not. And again, I was going to be sentenced to 21 to 27 months, right? A custodial time, meaning going to sit dead. Not knowing these things, and then going home and going to work and still trying to be a representative of what's needed, right? So in the book, I talk about being present in the house, but not having a presence in my marriage, right? Dumping everything that I was hiding behind a mask on her, right? Not really being what I was supposed to be, on top of putting her sense of normalcy in jeopardy. Still going to work and smiling and doing scouts and writing up my reports and touching the players and being a good assistant and helping Brad push this this organization forward. Like that was difficult, right? That was extremely difficult. Now I would be lying to you if I say, oh, it was nothing. Now I was like, oh, whatever comes. Nah, that really wasn't the case. It was like when I got by myself, or when I got home. Your home is supposed to be a place of rest, right? When I got home, like the elephant sat right next to me, right? And again, it's like 40 years. If my lawyer said, Jerome, we could rumble it. I'm gonna beat 5 out of 6 charges on the indictment. The 6th one, the tax evasion, we not getting. And if we rumble it, guess what? Everything is coming out, right? And if we lose, they're gonna try to hit you. It's 40 years, right? So my youngest son would have been 49 by the time I got out of prison. And my oldest kids would have been 63. So just that, like alone, like that's crazy. It's like a shock to your system. And again, so the elements of being depressed and sad and scared and still trying to bottle all that up and still not knowing if the Celtics is going, support me, or like I didn't think the Celtics was going. I thought I was getting fired and going to jail. And so all of these things that I'm trying to manage, all of these things, right? And on top of that, not blaming nobody. So I'm trying to manage all that and I'm blaming myself, right? And so it was a lot to carry. I had to dump it somewhere. Unfortunately, I dumped it on the one person I was put on this earth to protect, right? I dumped it all on her. So I got this match. You see me at the game, sitting on the benches, clapping, cheering. I'm going on. Then it's me driving home post game. I'm in a car by myself. My whole posture changed, right? Now reality starts to set in, right? And so you asked about condemnation. The book didn't release it. As things transpired throughout my case, right? Like some dots were starting to be connected. But I just watched God, one of the things I didn't pen in the book was at my sentencing, the government and the judge started arguing. So this is the judge, this is myself and my attorney, and then across from us is the defense attorney, actually the government, right? The DOJ, the people responsible for me sitting in. At my sentencing, the judge and the government started arguing. They started arguing as if like the DOJ was actually my defense, right? It's like, no, this is what we want. This is what we recommending. And the judge really wanted to make an example out of it. Again, like I'm supposed to get 21 to 27 months of custodial time. Person who wrote up the pre-sentencing report, the judge has to follow the guidelines. They dump everything on there that, the numbers were trumped up, but really my charge was only for 18,000. Now, if you ask me if I took more than 18,000, yes, but this is what I was charged with, but the judge ignored it. So the government, the people responsible for me sitting in there, got to arguing with them. They didn't even have to be in the court, let alone say anything, let alone ask them to follow recommendations. Can't nobody tell me that's not God. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that's just one thing. Again, so much transpired that I almost ended up releasing it all until my last day on house arrest. I was like, I watched him move to the point where he had my posture just like, I'm in this, and regardless of what happens, you're gonna be okay. Now, I'm not telling you I wanted to go to jail, or I was like, yeah, it is what it is. Like, we pray for his will to be done, but secretly, we really want our will to be done. We hope that day in alignment, right? That's just real, right? And so penning that, saying that, is like, I was still a little nervous, but the day that, like, my two youngest kids almost cut my Achilles off, right? Because they was in such a rush to get the location monitor off my ankle, it just made me say, you know what? Like, they still see me, as we say in Philly, as they old head. Like, they still love me. Like, they still, like, it's like, you still our dad. And then after that, I was like, I could care less what anybody else say. So I could speak my truth, because I watched him move, right? And the one thing I didn't think that they would, be willing to just release. And again, I'm not saying this, I got 4 kids. I'm not saying that all 4 of them had the same disposition, but when it came off and we went to dinner that night, and this was my first time being able to be outside the house after 12:30. Imagine sitting on the bench on house arrest, only being able to go to work and praying that the team don't go to overtime. Man, I hope Kyrie hit this shot at the buzzer, because I gotta be home by 12:30. And if that monitor go off, I don't want them coming to my door. I'm gonna have to do all this back time. No, I'm not playing. So to answer your question, I just, this book wasn't about releasing the condemnation. This was just, I just wanted to be obedient
Right.
and give my testimony, because I know he didn't place me on the other side of the storm to be quiet. Right. So
That's powerful, man. I appreciate you sharing that.
Next question, Antoine Jackson.
Coach Pooh Allen, how you doing, my man?
Hey, Twan, what's up? How you doing?
Great to see you. Great to see you, man. I'm glad everything is working out. I'm at East Carolina, by the way, right now, assistant coach down here. Just been here a couple, like a few weeks, a little over a month.
Congratulations.
Yeah, appreciate it. I got probably 2-3 part question. You can probably sum it all up. When the whole thing transpired, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did you explain everything to the Celtics? How did they respond? And in your mind, obviously, how do you think? What do you think kept you there and not losing your job with all this stuff happening, basically?
So I can answer it all in one shot, and hopefully it won't be long with it. But so I'll start with the last question, right? We all think, I guess it's a basic human desire to walk in any space and just add value. We all, just want to help whomever it is, whether it's our spouses, children, coaches, corporations, whatever the case may be, right? So in our minds and our efforts, we always think, and it might not always be the case, but we always think that our efforts is doing just that, right? It's delivering, the value that we hope, that we have a significance in the space that we occupy, right? That we're all connected to, right? And so, I try to, go to work and be me. Like I try to support the guys, support Brad, be authentically me, right, and do about as good a job as I possibly could for him, right. And we think that we hope that that's being received that way, right. But sometimes you never really know, right, if that's actually being received, that way, until you face a federal indictment, and it doesn't necessarily mean that the value that you thought you brought to the space would still be a reflection of the support. But myself and my lawyer, neither one of us thought that Danny and Brad would just throw their arms around, right? And so, and again, it's a $1 billion corporation, right? And not so much image. Like, I'm not putting any butts in the seats. I'm not selling any jerseys. People not coming to the games to cheer me on. And so I think that speaks to the human beings that not only this organization has from the top, but that they are. Danny Ainge, this is what he told me, and it blew me away. Story breaks, and I'm literally about to go to Africa to basketball, NBA Cares Basketball Without Borders, NBA Cares event in Johannesburg to represent the Celtics. I'm literally in the doctor's office, getting shots and getting my prescription for the stuff I had to take prior to going to the trip. And then the story break, I get a phone call from my assistant GM, and he had just got a call from a reporter at the Bloomberg News that I got pulled into this grand jury testimony. Now, all of this stuff was going on, and we thought that it wasn't going to come out. We thought it was going to be in-house, and then bam, it happens. And so then he pulls me into the office, and he says, "Jerome, listen," and this is the God's honest truth. He says, we had two conversations, one on the floor, and he says, "Oh, what happened?" And I was I did it. Like I can't, like, I can't make any excuses. And I think he really wanted to hear that. Right. I didn't really know what I was going to say when he, it wasn't like it was rehearsed. And that's what I led with. Right. Like I kind of told the truth. Right. And that's why now I could say there's so much power in accountability. Right. So fast forward a week and a half passes, the stories in the news cycle every day, and all the stuff is going. And then, you know, I wrote this statement and, you know, talked about it. And then he pulls me in the office. I still don't think I'm going to keep my job. And he pulls me in the office and he says, Jerome, I'm not worried about the media. I'm not worried about the PR hit. The only thing I'm worried about is, he said, we love you. We love your family. Only thing I'm worried about, a door closing, that someone else is going to be afraid of this label because I think you got a bright future in this business. And for lack of a better way of saying it, it fucked me up that he saw past everything. He was like, I know you, I know your family. You know, we love y'all. And that's really the only thing I'm worried about. I'm not worried about anything else. And I think that speaks to, it takes a special type of person to have that disposition, you know, especially in the business now where, you know, big businesses, you know, they are business of managing risk, you know, like they know like really what it's all about at the end of the day. And so to have that type of support, you know, it bought me some time to allow people to witness my posture in public, or what your posture should look like when you're going through the storm. And I think, you know, me having conversations with God, like being angry with him, saying, Lord, why? Like, you know, the first part of the book, I open up with a chapter called Why. And I talk about when the question begins with that word, are we asking why because we are complaining, or we are asking why because we have this deep desire to understand what God is attempting to execute? All right, Lord, I got you. All right, this is coming out. You know, tell me, like, what you trying to get out of this? Like, nah, I was complaining. That's why I was at. Wow, Lord, you talking about taking 36 kids to Italy over the course of 2 summers and spending my own money. You talk about STEM programs at Wharton, financial literacy camps at Wharton, taking kids from North Philly and South Jersey to Harvard to do cognitive thought behavior training seminars with Black men. You talking about all the money like that I spent on the community. Like, come on, Lord, I'm your man. You know, I've shared every blessing you've given me. Like, I'm your boy. You know, like, don't take me through this. I'm not perfect. Lord, I ain't doing half the stuff that I know some of these other coaches is doing. Like, no, not me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I penned all of this really from a perspective of, I just wanted to be human throughout it. And I think by saying that, yeah, I knew what he was going to do. I didn't. Like, I prayed for none of this to come out. None of it, right? But you know what? When his will is executed, like, I think, you know, I'm better because of the exposure. I'm better because of, again, I'm telling y'all the truth that I masked a whole lot while I was going through. Almost committed suicide, right? Oh, you know, my dad, I placed so much judgment on my dad. There's one thing I didn't say, right? I'll tell you this quick story, and then Kevin and I'll be quiet so you can ask the next question. So we played my junior year, senior, 94. My junior year, we played Harvard at the Palestra. And for the game, I'm there pregame shooting, and I kind of got there early, like normal. And as I'm about to walk off the floor to walk in the locker room, my dad, a guy walks up to me and says, Jerome, does your dad need money? And I say, what? He says, Jerome, does your dad need money? I'm like, man, what are you talking about? He's like, oh, because he's outside in front of the Palestra asking people for change as they come in. he was so high that he didn't realize where he was at, right? Now, everybody knew he was my dad. And the one thing that I always tried to hide when I was in school was that my dad was a drug addict, right? So now he at front of the palestra, we're about to play a game. He asking people for change, right, as they come in. I got snot in my nose. I got puffy eyebrows as it is. My eyes puffy, like the, I'm crying so hard. The snot and the tears running down to the top of my lip. I'm stuttering. I hate him. I vowed to hate him for the rest of my life because of that. Now, fast forward 26 years later, right? Told y'all I had a set of twins that both graduated from Penn. The boy graduated from the Wharton Business School. The girl graduated from the School of Nursing, right? Class of 2018, both of them. He wins the second highest award at the senior class award at graduation. And he wins the Dean's Award at the Wharton graduation. One of 6 students. He got to stand up at the end. They listing all of his accomplishments and what he's done, right? And their graduation is held inside the palestra, right? So people standing up, cheering, clapping for him, and I just sat there like numb, like I couldn't believe it. In that same space, right, we won 3 Ivy League championships, and people cheered and applauded for me, and here he is for a completely different reason being cheered for and applauded, and it was just like, wow, God is unreal, right? Now imagine, now my story breaks. And so in that same space, what I did to him, and again, only 1,100 people witnessed, my dad's disease displayed to the public, right? The whole world saw my story. Now, the same judgment, the same compassion, the same empathy, the same unforgiveness I was willing to extend to my own dad, I'm begging for it from my own son, right? Yeah. Same space, right? And so just going on this journey, telling the story, like it allowed me to address so many things, like, the judgment. When the judge gets judged, it's completely different when the shoe is on the other foot. I wasn't willing to extend these things to my own father. Now I'm begging him and all my kids to have some type of compassion and forgiveness. And so that's tough, going through that exercise, but kind of, to bring it all back to the question is like, those are conversations that Danny Ainge had with me. It was a matter of fact. And I think it speaks to who Brad Stevens and Danny Ainge, who they are, and Whit Grossbeck and Steve Paliuca and Jim Cash, who those guys are, as men first, because I'm not putting butts in the seat and I'm not selling jerseys, but this organization is just, it was just unreal, the amount of support, and let me go back and forth to court. I missed the whole, like a half of a West Coast swing because I was on trial and nobody knew it, and they were just like, go take care of what you got to take care of, and we'll be here for you if you need anything, let us know. And it's just like, there's nothing but God. And again, I always say, like, we prejudge our experiences. The value we place on something in the moment is always different upon reflection. So when I got fired and let go from Penn, right, I was mad at the AD. I was like, I only need 1 more year. We right there, Now I'm saying, whew, imagine what would have happened if I was still at Penn and all of this came out. They would have threw me underneath the jail. Now, I sat in jail, but not for that long. But it would have been no way for no one to witness, like, what your posture's supposed to look like when you're going through a storm, or I wouldn't have had time for others to kind of measure who I was at my core, despite of my brokenness and my imperfections. Now I'm like, man, I'm so glad she fired me. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Hey, I got one quick thing. Through, all of that, and the way Mr. Ainge, the way Danny and Brad responded and treated you. Like, I know you said, like, it messed you up, right? Mm-hmm. Is there a specific feeling that you had, like, when you left out of his office the second time that he talked to you?
You said what feeling?
Is there a specific way, a specific thing or feeling that you had when you left out of Danny Ainge's office the second time he talked to you? Because you say y'all talked on the court and then you went up to his office.
It was just briefly. So on the court, and this was one day.
Yep.
And then I say like a week and a half later, when he called me into the office. And when I walked out, I just was like, I just kind of was like in this awe of, despite all of this, he still was worried about me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was just like, man, and again, that's why I led with, you know, you think you have an impact and you have value, and again, I could talk about, you know, just my job description, and like, you know, a lot of people might not, you know, be aware of, and I'm putting quotes on this, like, you know, my significance in this space, and I'm an assistant coach, and it's not like I'm promoting anything, but I could talk about us being in staff meetings and how Brad had empowered not only me, but the whole staff to really have impact, right? And a lot of it would probably, you know, especially some of my friends, that know me, they probably be like, yeah, okay, you know what I'm saying? but for that to be recognized, not so much, you know, my work, but what they witnessed from me as a person in 3 years. You know, I mean, I've been here for over 5 years now, but in 3 years, for him to kind of lead with that is just like, maybe like, because again, I didn't anticipate this coming. I didn't know what was coming down the pipe. I didn't expect it for the storm that you know, to hit me. So it wasn't like I was going to work every day trying to prepare for it, just in case I get involved in some BS. Like, I was just being me, and you'll be hard pressed to speak to me first in any space I walk in. Like, I tried to make it about the players every day. You know, I tried to do what Brad asked. I tried to study the game. I just tried to be about what I was supposed to be about, and that's, you know, being me one way. And like, at this level, like, these guys see through BS. They see through the frauds. They know who's genuine, you know. And so, like, just being me, and making it about the guys and supporting Brad, I think wasn't really the best decision I ever made, because that was the only decision that I knew how to make without being calculated. You know, in this business, I've been on the road, and people like associate with certain people for, you know, the name that's on the polo shirt, you know what I'm saying? Or you know, people on a network, and it's, I wonder, this guy could connect me to this, or like, I like to go in spaces because I like people, and without any hidden agenda, you know, whatever. And if we vibe, we vibe. And so going to work and just being me was probably the best decision I ever made. And I think that was what helped me to have an opportunity to still, you know, maintain employment.
Next
question. I went to jail. That wouldn't happen.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next question, Trey Vermel.
Coach Allen, thank you so much for being here. So I've got a really short question, but I just want to preface by saying I really do appreciate you sharing your story with us here today. It sounds like you've just been on an incredible journey of self-discovery, which I think is awesome, and we all can relate to. I do also appreciate that last question, because I had part of that in my question I got now, but let me get to it. So you talked about keeping your job. I even read an article where a ton of players on the Celtics just respect you enormously just for who you are as a person. And it sounds like to me it's just because of your honesty, your integrity, and how you carry yourself every day. But what I want to ask is, can you just talk about your transformation as a person through all of this, and just who you are today after going through all of this, and what sort of value you bring to the Celtics based on this experience and this journey that you've gone through?
Well, I will say, after going through this, the value I bring in any space has been heightened, whether it's at my job or whether it's in the house or whether it's my relationship with, my wife or as a father, as a friend. Or it was a part in the book where someone asked me a question. They said, if you had to go through it all over again, would you make different choices, right? In terms of, he was prefacing basically, would I have accepted the money? And I really had to pause for a second, because I'm well aware of what it did to my family and what it did to the university, right? But what I gained from the exposure, I know, I had a relationship, with God, and I'm not saying that I'm saying it like it was a part of my imperfect life, right? But it's different now. Not like, I found God. I'm not pinning it like this is, that wasn't the focal point of my life beforehand. It was. Doesn't necessarily mean it removes me from having imperfections, right? But going deeper in this relationship is something that you can't put a price on. Like, for example, we always say, oh yeah, God is good. He can make a way out of no way, right? But we never want to be in a no way out situation, right? So if you're never really in a no way out situation, like, how do you really know that? Oh, God, yeah, he'll give you the peace that surpasses all understanding. We say these things almost as if they're cliche, right? But like, I seen him operate. Like, I'm in a position where it's nobody else. I couldn't call my lawyer. I couldn't call my wife. I couldn't call my pastor. I couldn't call Tyson Wheeler. I couldn't call nobody, right? It was just me and him. And it was almost, he put me in a situation. It was like, all right, like, you had to try to figure all this stuff out on your own. Like, it's just me and you, right? And so we have this depths of the relationship that we have now. I don't know if I would want to like give that back. Now, that's why I say I had to pause, because I'm well aware of what it did to my family, what it did to the university. But selfishly speaking, it's like, man, like, and a lot of times, like, you don't get to certain depths in a relationship with somebody until you've been through something. And now I'm saying this like selfishly, like, I probably would not. Like, yeah, all right, to answer your question, like, I wouldn't take the money, right? But I had to pause and think about it. And so it's like this, the nutrients gained from my exposure, right? I'm better because of the exposure and all these things. I'm in a position, and this is in the book, where that I get sentenced, right? I'm thinking I'm done with alphabet, right? They're gonna leave me alone. Guess what? Once they got you, they got you. So a couple months after my thing is over, a whole nother office, a whole nother branch, a whole nother district on my line. I don't know if that's me. Somebody, I could hear somebody.
Trey, that's your
yourself, Trey.
Oh, sorry about
a whole nother another district, a branch, another state. Now on my phone, Jerome, we need you to come in. I'm like, I thought I was done. I got sentenced and everything. Like, no. So when they call me back in, now they calling me and asking me questions about people who pointed them in my direction in the first place, right? So now I'm like, oh, excuse my French. Oh, I get a chance to do to these motherfuckers what they did to me, right? It's like revenge served cold. I can get them back. Now their family's sense of normalcy could be threatened, right? Now they got to go through all the exposure, right? But if I do that, everything I claim to have gained because of the exposure, I really would have lost, right? So now I start praying for them. And again, I'm in a car outside of the federal building in Boston, Massachusetts, before I got to meet with these people to talk about the same people that pointed them in my direction. And I'm in a car saying, yeah, I'm telling. And then I just took a deep breath and like just started praying. And once I walked out the car, I was just like, that ain't right. So when you ask me about transformation, it's like, don't get it twisted. Like, I'm not saying it's like, oh yeah, I found God through all of this. No, like, like I knew who he was, right? But when you get out of alignment, right, and he not the focal point of your actions every day, daily, it's easy to have the sins of your own heart come to maturation, right? But even in our previous relationship, where it's at today, nobody can make me doubt him, right? And so I'm thankful for the exposure. So I'm better. And I think in penning the story, me being vulnerable, me being transparent, me having real conversations with myself throughout it. And again, not as if like I was just this loyal, faithful soldier. I was angry. I was mad. I was confused. I let go of my faith at one point. I'm contemplating suicide. I'm wearing this mask. I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna piece all of these things together, right? While going through it, and then putting that on paper, right? Say that at the end of it, I'll wrap the question up with this. When I first sent Deborah like the early drafts, I wrote to a like-minded group. Oh, God is good, isn't he? Yeah, he got into a self-created storm and he managed it. Yeah, he's good all the time, right? Then I started to pen it to the critics. I'm gonna tell them why I did it, right? If they ain't want to help these kids, I was gonna figure out a way to help them, right? Like feel justified. And then by the time Deborah got finished with me, like I wrote to every human being and really tried to just use myself, undress myself, and really focus on the sins of my own heart, right? To say that if mismanaged, these are some of the things that can happen, right? And it almost cost me my witness. It cost me my legacy, right? It almost cost me a ton. So to be, for lack of a better way of saying it, saved from it, right? Says, I gotta share this testimony. Even through it all, like I'm on the phone with Book Richardson, right? Because him and I could really talk about like being locked up, right? And him and I could talk about, the government taking everything. It was my 20th anniversary. I went to go buy my wife a gift, right? And 20 years, I knew what I was gonna get her. I'm sitting in the parking lot at King of Prussia Mall, right? My card had been copied twice, so I don't keep a lot of money and on this one debit card. So right before I go in the store, I'm gonna transfer the money, go in and buy it. As I pull my phone out to transfer the money and go on my online banking, all my accounts, all four of them, all in the red. They came in, they levied all of my accounts. 5 days before that, they hit me with a 6-figure tax lien that they wanted their money ASAP. They took everything. I had $60 in my wallet. That's all I had to my name. $60. They took everything. And I say, man, when the alphabet come, they don't play fair, right? But what do you do at that point? It was raining so crazy on me. I just had to start laughing. I was like, Lord, what else? Right? What else? So to talk about transformation, I'm so thankful. Again, I could talk about it because I'm on the other side of the storm. I didn't pen the story like because I lost my job or I'm in jail or whatever. I penned the story while I'm still in the limelight, like while I'm still in this public space, while I'm still sitting next to Brad Stevens talking about what he's done. And I would like to think that like somebody was like, well, be quiet. You passed the storm. It was just a blimp in the road. Like, don't bring no more attention to it. It's like, he didn't allow me to still be sitting here to be quiet. And so hopefully that answers your question. But like, I wouldn't put my family through it again, or the university. I love Penn. I'm a Quaker. Ain't nobody take that from me. Even after the AD removed me from the Penn Athletics Hall of Fame, even after the NCAA hit me with a 15-year show clause, I can go back to college when I'm 62. Mother say my college coaching career is over. Even after all of these things, I wanted to say they gave me and I penned this. I didn't put this exactly in the book, but we in a safe space. So they gave me a 15-year show clause. 15 years. David Bliss covered up a murder, and they only gave him 10 years, right? One program, they got a whole strip club, thing, Magic City, Onyx, whatever you want to name it, right? And they can go back and still get a job. Like my own cousin calling me a rat because I admitted to what I did. All these things, like, to still be able to put all of this on paper and talk about how he was just a constant force in my life, even when I didn't know it. This is not a spiritual book. This is not a sports book. This is not a memoir. It's not an autobiography or a biography. It's the summation of all of it. And I didn't want to just write it like people would think that my whole life has been changed because I'm able to keep my job. Whether I kept my job or not, I was going to tell it what he's done. And, without being heavy. At the end of it, I know that, my whole story will be populated on both sides. Some people might say it was justified or it was crazy. Other people might be like, he still was out of pocket, right? And I'm okay with either one. I still got a weird relationship with my dad after me judging him and now my kids judging me. I still have elements of hypocrisy. I think God just addressed one thing, right, so that he could move on to the next imperfection, in my life. My wife is still praying for me to have presence in our marriage and not just be present. Like, I'm still not whole. I don't want to be whole till they put me in the dirt and I gotta go ascend, before him. So I'm not penning this like I'm holy, saved, sanctified, and I got everything figured out. I'm still Pooh, you know what I'm saying? I'm still working through stuff. I just been afforded the opportunity to talk about these things from a human standpoint, and just be real.
Next question, Sean.
Coach, thank you for speaking to us today. It's been a pleasure, and what a learning experience. I wanted to kind of ask you about how you went through your experience, and then I'm up here in Boston. So my office is right there on Cambridge Street behind the federal judge courthouses. Mm-hmm. And in the past year, with all of the celebrity cases and the college admission scandals, and how all of a sudden the exposure got pointed at the parents and not really on the coaches, as happened in your case, and with the amount of it taking place in Boston, like, what kind of feelings did that bring up, and how did that affect your processing, watching that unfold in a very different manner than people pointed the finger and wanted to show cause at you, and yet in this scenario it was very flipped. And I reflected a lot on what you had been through when I'm watching this and seeing how the framing that a lot of people were putting towards that situation.
So through it all, I had been quiet, right? One part of it, I had to be quiet, right? I'm still going through the process. But even after everything that was written, right? And I'm not even when I coached in college, I tried really not to every day read what was in in the media, right? You're never as bad as you think you are or as good as you think you are. I just tried to stay away from other people's narrative, right? But sometimes when you silent, a narrative will be created, right? And so nobody knows this. Well, in the book they find out, but my case is the genesis of the college admission scandal. So you asked about what was in the media, right? So long story short, my last day on trial, before I'm asked one question. Here's the last question that the lawyer had asked me. Jerome, do you know this guy? Do you know that guy? Do you know that guy? Do you know that guy? He asked me about 6 people. 5 of them I knew, right? Do you know that they got this, they got that, they got this, they got that? Now, in my mind, I had some speculation, but you don't sit on those stand and speculate anything. So I'm quiet, right? Nah. Okay, no further questions. The judge addresses the court before he releases the jury, right? The jury stands up, they're about to leave, right? You know, everybody in court got to sit still while the jury, at least, they stand up, they're about to walk out. He says, wait 1 second, sit back down. There will be a story in the news cycle that's connected to, but not related to this case. You are instructed not to read anything or watch anything about it. Is that clear? Yes. Okay. You are released. They walk out. Then I get off the stand. Everybody released. That was that. Now the team is in LA, so I'm thinking I'm done. So maybe I got enough time to catch this flight out to LA to meet the team. So as I walk out of the Federal Building in Miami, about 15 minutes, my phone started blowing up. It's like this Varsity Blues college admission stuff. That's the people at the center of it. I was just asked about them in court. So I'm looking at my phone, I'm like, holy shit, right? So the people that was connected to the story that I knew, I said, damn. And I use this phrase in the book, I would say, damn, the alphabet, they had bigger fish to fry. This wasn't even, this was about me, but it wasn't about me, right? So to connect it to your question is this. When I talked earlier about 2 different offices, right? The DOJ and the assistant attorney generals that was trying the case I was connected to was really worried about that guy, right? They wanted that guy who was involved in the fraud, right? That I got rolled up in, right? That's who they wanted. And how could they make one of the 6 indictments that they hit him with, the 5 indictments that they hit him with was we gonna get him on, we might not get him on all, but we gonna get him on something, right? And so mine's was one of them, my bribery, right? So that's all they wanted, the Miami office. They wanted that case. Again, that was $1 billion, right? They wanted that. They wasn't worried about the other stuff, all right? And so that's how the Boston office said, oh, we're gonna pick this up, right? So now the Boston office picks it up, right? What I was connected to and my indictment had really everything to do with that, but nothing to do with it because, again, they was worried about the healthcare fraud, right? And so when all that stuff pop off, they just used it kind of, not so much the transcripts, but they just used all the information that they gathered through my case, right? Through me and the people that they touched to build that up, right? So nobody knows that, right? And so when all of that stuff is going on, that's when they go off in a different route. But the people at the center of that, right? Once they got the names that they wanted, right? And I'm not blaming anybody. I did it. I'm wrong. I'm holding myself accountable. But if we could be transparent, like some people like pick stuff up because either it's political or they trying to move up in their own careers or make a name for themselves, and so they pick that stuff up. So I'm done, right? And in Florida, right? They trying to build out their thing in Boston. And that's why they called me back in, because again, once you're in the system, you know, I play it out. You know what I'm saying? I didn't want to do 40 years. I took, yeah, all right, okay, fine. I don't know nothing about it, but yeah, you got me, okay. But if they ever call me, I gotta walk in. And so that's why I got called back into Boston. And so all the stuff that's spent out from there, that was their angle. That was their angle in Massachusetts. And so that's probably why I was really the only coach. And again, I was the coach. And again, I'm not putting the indictment in front of you. I was the coach. And it's crazy because all I said, like when they told me Lifetime was trying to come out with a story, like maybe four months after everything hit, I was like, damn, they not waiting. Like nobody's going to tell my story, but man, I'm not going to be quiet and let them come up with something that makes sense, based off of some court, transcripts. And I didn't really, like I said, and Deborah helped me with this. I wasn't trying to in the end, trying to make excuses. And again, in my flesh, like I said in the book, I wanted to tell, yeah, he did this. Like what's craziest thing is guys out here walking around that I was in a position to upset their world, right? And without initially, again, like a lot of times, you walk in your flesh, without me having this relationship, I probably would have did some sucker stuff. I probably would have been like, yeah, because by nature we vindictive, But at the end of the day, he had been too good to me to really try to move with that, that type of sport. Funny, this is the last thing I say about that question. Here's the funny thing. The other day, this is early last week, I'm in Romans 12. I'm studying for like a month and a half, right? The whole book of Romans. And 12:14, so it says, do not persecute your enemies, pray for them and don't persecute them. This morning, I just got off my knees, did my morning reading, go downstairs in the bubble, and get some breakfast. Take the elevator, get off. It's early. Make a left to walk down this long hallway, right? As soon as I make the left, I can't see. Before making the left, I can't see what's coming or whatever. It's like a blind spot. As soon as I make a left, right, who do I run into? I run into the guy that snitched on me. And so it was so funny that I had just got finished from reading Romans 14, right? That as I turn the corner, bam. And so he really don't know how to take it. And I just asked him, what's good? How the kids doing? Again, this was my man. 4.5 years, we teammates together in Europe, and 4.5 years in Europe is like 25 years here, and I just started asking him about his kids and how they doing and where they going to school and how he doing, everything all right, yeah, the bubble crazy, and I just had such a peace, right, as I walked away from him, because it was so, I just like, Lord, you a funny boy. We say boy in Philly, right? I was like, yo, you a funny boy. I had just got finished reading that, right? And it's like, you move from the theoretical to the practical. If in his work, the more you start to read and study, he gonna move you from that. And then you get in the moment, it's like, all right, what you gonna do? And I'll be lying to you if I said, I've always been able to move from the theoretical to the practical and be on point. That has not always been the case. And my wife would tell you that, especially after being married for 22 years. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, sorry.
Next question, Jerry McFarland.
Coach Allen, definitely appreciate you, revealing yourself and really sharing your story with us. And I just kind of wanted to ask you a question regarding relationships, because as a basketball coach, especially if you know, back probably a little different in the pros than in college. But when you're a college basketball coach, you deal a lot in personal relationships, mentoring, and everything else. Can you talk a little bit about, like, once everything came down, did your relationships change or whatever, or how things were with kids and everything else afterwards?
So the hardest part is, like, again, let me give you the spill real quick, right? Once I got the job at Penn, right? In the history of the Big Five, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's like a Philadelphia cohort where it's, you know, an unofficial conference. It's Villanova, St. Joe's, LaSalle, Temple, and Penn, right? In the history of the Big Five, right, there had only been 2 other African-American head coaches in the history of it, right? Craig Littlepage and John Chaney. Now I'm the 3rd in the history of it, right? And so, you know, my thing was, I get the Penn, we gotta win. I got service the kids, we gotta win, because we don't, you know, Black coaches, we don't get these opportunities too often, especially, my story is crazy. We gotta get it done. I'm getting these kids. I can show you a picture. When I first got the job, right, it was 2 African-American kids on the team, right? And when I got let go, it was 11, right? So I'm like, man, I'm trying to, you know, get Black kids to think about their college decisions, like, stop, you know, making these 4-year decisions, think about, like, going to certain schools where they can get out here and get good jobs after they get out. Like, I got this whole plan, right? And I'm gonna make sure that they meeting these people and that people. When I say they, I'm talking about the whole team, but I do have a lean, right? I got a slight lean. Like, I'm the ones that look like me, I'm really trying to make sure that they don't leave this place in a basketball bubble, right? Again, I knew that, I'm not saying I was the exception as a player, but most of them all of them going to Penn to be professionals in something other than sports. We all seen the commercial, right? And so I'm like, this is why, you know, Tommy Emmerich is getting it done at Harvard. He got these top 100 kids considering going to the Ivy League, and we got to get it done. Plus, when I was at Penn, you know, 3 of us in the backcourt, all 3 of us played in the NBA, me, Ira Bowman, Matt Maloney. Can't nobody tell me nothing. Like, the level don't make you, and I'm going to tell them my story. You know, so this is what I'm embracing, and yet and still all of this transpires, right? So you got this element of, you let, especially the ones that look like you, all the kids that came through Penn, right? You know, all the young men that played in the program that represented the red and the blue, you kind of feel like you let them down, right? So you carry that, not a little bit, but you carry it. You know what I'm saying? And I still, even at the end of the book, I said I prayed that my failure in character and my exposure still can be used to push them forward, hoping that they can extract something from the story, right, to stand on, right, that even in this exposure, there's some element of good that they could take from what I experienced, right? Because again, me, you know, I always wanted the experience to be about them. We say that, but there's still pieces of us that our experiences are really about us. We just don't admit it, right? And so that was really one of the hardest things. Not Black African-American coaches not having an opportunity to coach in the big, you know, I don't want to say the Big Five, but just on the national stage at the rate that I felt as though they should have. And me having this opportunity, if I can get it done, I used to always say, don't, to the guys, don't ever forfeit the opportunity for someone else, right? I used to always say that, right? And now that transpires, and look what I did, right? So now I'm carrying it, right? But if you asking me from a professional standpoint, and the guys, like, Isaiah Thomas wrote the foreword to the book, right? And in the foreword, you know, he talked about some things that we personally experienced. But he talked about, like, even when the story hit, I remember him calling me like, damn, fam, what's good? Like, what you on over there? Telling you, them Philly cats, right? He bringing humor to it. But, like, Isaiah, I mean, I could read you text messages from Kyrie Irving, right? Marcus Morris, Terry Rozier, you know. Brad Stevens told me when my story hit, the first player to call him was Marcus Smart to ask about me, right? Jerome, all right, you know, and so those things kind of not so much soothing, but just like, you know, damn, the guy's really, you know, checking up on me, right? Or one day I didn't show up at practice, and I had something else going on. I had excused absence, and Jason Tatum text my phone later on at night, "You good?" Right? Hoping that I respond. And so when I seen him the next day, he's like, "Yeah, I ain't know if your probation officer came and got you or not, right? I'm just checking." And the humor, right? It was saying that, lack for a better way of saying it, they fuck with me, right? And it goes back to kind of how in my perfections, right? How I tried to service the space. And again, I'm in a league where it's almost 80% of the players look like me, right? They have insecurities and trust issues because there's so many people trying to get at them, right? For when they open up and let you in at any level, right? When they open up and let you in, you really got to be conscious of how you move about in that space because they don't let everybody in. So to be able to touch them and then them in turn genuinely care about you or check up on you is like, all right, well, in my conversations with them, I have to be real. I have to tell them that, you know, I still got shit that's wrong with me. You know what I'm saying? I'm still trying to figure it out, but it don't stop me from telling them what's right or telling them like, yo, when you out of pocket, like it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and we just landed in Chicago after we lost a home game. I just want to go to sleep. I don't want to be on the phone till 4:30 arguing with Isaiah Thomas about him constantly missing the corner kick or him wanting Brad to call different plays in the fourth quarter or him turning from being an all-star point guard. Now he's a Hall of Fame coach. Which one are you going to be? You know, and going back and forth about, but in those conversations, right? And, you know, me talking about like, or being able to have a pulse on walking in a shoot around and all of a sudden, you know, Marcus Morris quiet one day and he's never really quiet. It's like, what's up? You know, you all right? Man, my old lady, as he would say, man, getting on my nerves and I had to run out the house and how guys carry stuff with them in every space that they go in. And we tend to think that they're invincible because they're highly talented, but they're human beings like everybody else. And so what it showed me was that all of my experiences, like even talking about like, you know, I don't want to say his name, but one day he showed up at shoot around and he had this stressed look on his face. And so he said to me, again, Kevin said I could be real in the space. He says, man, I fucking hate my baby mom. Right? My son was supposed to come. She ain't let him on the plane. Like, man, and so me being able to talk to him about my baby mama drama, right? And trying to normalize his experience so that he don't think he on an island all by himself without like, and again, I wasn't trying to trick him, but there's a human element to everybody that we're around, right? To say, yeah, you know, I remember going to child support court for 10 straight summers. Every year I came back, 10 straight. You're like, yeah, get out of here. I'm like, no, I'm dead serious, 10 straight. So now I started thinking, damn, maybe all that, or my experiences, all that I went through was really for this moment right here, to be able to have this conversation with him, you know what I'm saying, today, to try to shift his perspective, not so that we could win the game, right? And he did go out and had 37 after that, right? And I joked with him like, yeah, it was for me. You was on suicide watch. You was ready to jump. Yeah, you don't bring nothing to our relationship, you know what I'm saying, and the comedy, right, that comes along with it. But just our experiences, you know, again, most of the time are for someone else, right? And so everything I went through and penning this book, as much as I tried to make it about me in the moment, I do believe, you know, Reverend Dr. Alan Waller, when he said, there's someone waiting for you on the other side of the storm. And I've gotten such a response, a positive response at some of the people who have been part of beta groups that have read, you know, the early release of it, that it's allowed me to say, you know, that and be thankful for being obedient, because I was a little hesitant. You know, you think you're doing something that could have potential to right impact, and you're not really sure about it until it actually has impact.
Next question, Samantha Smith.
Hi, Coach. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm Sam Smith. I'm with VCU Athletics. So my question for you tonight is, what would your advice be today to anyone facing a moral or ethical dilemma in their workspace, whether big or small? So,
like, someone asked me, like, we were only supposed to get one bottle of, this is silly, but this is the truth. I'm gonna answer your question. So they had all of this body wash in our team room here in the bubble. It's like, you know, you take one bottle, right? And so a couple of guys didn't take the body wash. So it's like, someone was like, I'm taking two. They just left it here. And he was like, Rome, you want one? I was like, hell no, I'm taking one, right? It was body wash. But my point in saying that is that in every little thing, right, in every small detail, my failure in character, the integrity that is required to make any decision, right, can't be ignored. It's something as small as body wash, right? And I'm not saying it's traumatic, right? Something as small as body wash is a reflection of just really how transformative, to use Trey's word, this experience has been. This is my wife calling me on FaceTime now, but hold on one second.
Take your time.
Miss Allen, I'm on a Zoom. I'm gonna call you right back. Okay.
No.
Please. No, look, this is the truth.
I'm gonna treat you like you treat me. So what?
Please, no, I can't. I'm gonna call you back.
No, this is perfect. Because when it's you, it's no big deal.
No, I'm gonna call you back.
Fucking murder.
You can't curse, right? This is a good Christian group. You gotta stop cursing at me.
Tell them how you act.
I know.
You ain't talked to me in 3 days because I ain't pick up my phone on Saturday.
I'm gonna tell him that right now. I am. I'll call you back.
That was my all-time favorite Zoom moment ever. That was incredible. Incredible.
She said, well, tell them how you really are. Tell them how you ain't talked to me in 3 days because you was calling me and I wouldn't answer the phone. I text her every day though. I actually FaceTimed her this morning and I was shocked she picked up. She was mad at me, but yeah, she picked up. But yeah, it's just, it's like, you know, anything like, at the end of the book, right, I talk about the difference between reputation and integrity. It's two different things, right? And so I had this reputation. I'm a good guy, kind-hearted, giving, right? Yeah, I'm supportive. Like I'm, you know, they call me Pooh. Like you know, Pooh Allen. Like he about the kids. He trying to help them out. But my reputation was one thing. The integrity that I carried was something different. But also the guy who took the money, right, who's a convicted felon and who was out of pocket, for the lack of a better way of saying it. And so my goal is throughout this exercise and penning the story, and again, I keep saying this, I give Deborah a lot of credit, was to speak to the human elements in all of us, right? And not to say that, you know, we all carry hypocrisy or we all wear a mask, but really just try to be transparent in addressing really what was at my core, right? I had some stuff that needed to be purged or scrubbed that affected decisions that I made, right? And I'm putting on all these cognitive behavior training exercises and taking kids to Harvard to do these seminars and I got, guys that run, federal agents that run the reentry programs and for the government, doing all these things, and never really did the work on myself, right? And so to answer your question, if I had to give someone one piece of advice, I would say, and they say I only could say one thing, I would say there's power and accountability. Right? And then if they gave me another second, I would say that when you get out of alignment, right, and you lose sight of your true purpose in life, it can cost others their purpose. So one decision that I made, right, had an impact on so many. And what's crazy is that I used to always say to my players at Penn, what you do will affect an opportunity for someone else. So if you don't cut hard off the back screen, that means when the 5-man got a pop to catch the ball, his man going to deny it. And then he going to push him all the way out the half court. And now when he do catch it, our timing and spacing is off for the backside. So when the pin down come, now that pass is going to be too long. Guy going to shoot the gap because he don't have to trail it because it's not a tight pin down, right? It's going to be a turnover. They're going to go down, dunk, score, and we're going to lose the game at the buzzer, right? And everybody going to talk about the turnover that our 5-man had and why I had him in a position to make a decision at the end of the game, right? Nobody's going to see the small detail that started with your entry pass and how you cut off the post because you was casual, right? And so because we're talking about, I think the collective has brought us together is basketball, and I could be wrong, but me talking about just how you cut off a back screen, right, and get into losing a game because of a steal that happened because the timing and the spacing was off, right, goes to everything we do in life, right? If we're not careful, it will affect something that someone else is connected to. And I try to be better. I'm not perfect, right? I still got stuff, that I'm trying to address. You see, she put me on blast, right, in the moment. But I'm better. And I'm hoping to just be my best by the time I close my eyes.
We got a couple more questions. We want to be respectful of your time. You've been unbelievable. But we just have a few more questions here. If you
it's
don't
okay.
mind.
She's not going to answer when I call back. So
okay.
don't feel like I rush.
Okay.
She made her point.
The next question is from Charney Zoll Norman.
Hey, Jerome. Charney Zoll Norman, assistant women's basketball coach at University of Rhode Island. And I want to just thank you, for sharing your story. I'm new to the business and want to be able to kind of self-reflect a bit in regards to every decision I make and making sure to bring God into every word and decisions that I'm making. And so you alluded to, your guys at Penn. And so you talked a lot about your feelings after the case. Can you talk a bit about how you felt while you were still at Penn, coaching up your student athletes and mentoring the young men from Philly? Like, did you feel any guilt at any point, or were you kind of desensitized, or how did you feel?
Yeah, so when I was my first job at Penn, I was the volunteer assistant, right? And I used to have this sign over my desk, right? And he used to say, quite sure you probably heard it, kids don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care, right? And I've had, it's like, I tell it, the story about my mom not letting me go to the Sixers parade in '83, right? And she wouldn't let me. She just wouldn't let me go. I was 10, and her response was because I said so, right? And I was just like, well, that's not a good enough answer because you said so, right? And so that's a certain law, right? Because I said so. In any type of relationship where there's distance between the two people that's involved in the exchange, right? And so fast forward, now that I have a 10-year-old, it's like there's nowhere in the world I would let him catch the bus, by himself to go to South Philly at 10 years old to be amongst 1.7 million people, right? So really, she had a reason and she knew it, right? And so sometimes in relationships, people, especially with coach or player, right? A freshman coming in and he's 18 and I'm 37, for example, at this time. I'm seasoned enough in life to know what are some of the things that are important in terms of instilling certain things and habits, in him. And so the beauty of it is, even now, one of my former players sent me a text a couple months ago and talked about, right, the things that he struggled with in college because I was so demanding of certain things, right? And how that in the moment it affected how he viewed me, right? But now where he's at in life, he acknowledges or he's aware of what I was trying to do, right? And so sometimes, just to answer your question, we plant seeds, right? But sometimes, like, we may not be there for the harvest, right? And we hope that they get it at some point. And again, I didn't get what my mom was trying to do until I became a father, right? And so to have this young man say to me, and coach, and he's in the business of coaching now, but he was talking about life, like it started all come together, right? And so what it made me say that if I could go back in time and really evaluate if I'm telling them the right things, am I standing on the right details, right? Because when you have friction, right, and I'm a stubborn person, but I'm not that stubborn to the point where I'm not willing to admit my own insecurities. When you have friction, sometimes, like, you go back and say, damn, is that the right thing? Am I just being stubborn? Like, am I really, like, going about it the right way? Or at least I did, right? And so to be able to witness that now says that, you know what, I wasn't as crazy as I thought I was. Like, I did, like, I did try to instill the right things in them. And it wasn't like, again, as I said earlier, like, while my case was going on, I'm like, a lot of groups I'm connected to directly and indirectly, whether it's being, a Black man in this country, whether it's being a Black coach in the business, whether it's being an Ivy League student, whether it's being part of the Penn alumni, whether it's being a kid from Philly, whether it's being a kid from North Philly, whether it's being a representative of the Boston Celtics, whether it's being a husband, whether it was being a father. There's so many groups I was connected to that if we all just have a little bit more consciousness as far as, like, who we are connected to directly and indirectly, then I think we all would make, better decisions. You asked me, had I known this would be the result of it, right? Again, I paused if they asked me if I would do it all over again, but I really start to preface, it's like, I wouldn't want to put my kids, my wife, my family, my mother, my sister, my niece, the Boston Celtics, or I'm a Quaker, let alone Penn and the university. I love the school. I wouldn't want to put them through anything. I wouldn't want to put any of my friends, the city, the people who support me. There are people, right, that support you that you might not even know, right? That they're rooting for you and they feel connected to you just by your walk. I wouldn't want to put anyone through that, ever again, despite of the fact that I know I'm better because of it, because it will have an impact. And so, I'm not, I'm not going to blame Deborah, but, like, so I didn't really have Instagram or Twitter, and she's like, Jerome, you have to establish a presence on social media, because that's almost kind of like, your lobby, or like, you just gonna have to. And so the good thing has been about it is that some people who I've either lost contact with or haven't had a way of getting in contact with me have been able to find me through DMs. I didn't even know how to send a DM. I had to ask my daughter, right? And so, one of my players who actually was the commencement speaker his senior year at Penn just came back from doing a tour in the Middle East, and he hit me today and sent me a DM, and I've been putting up these videos, of myself and all the players in the bubble, just talking trash every day, right? And so it's been good to kind of, kind of connect or reconnect, with some of the people that I haven't been able to talk to or connect with in a while. And like I talk about being called back in. Don't think like the feds, they had my phones tapped, they had the device and the SIM card hit, and all that stuff came out in court. I was like, damn. So like, they had your stuff on the screen. You said, I'm like, oh yeah. So just read the highlighted area. Is that you? From you? Did you say? Well, what had happened was, yeah.
All right, next question. Chris Cheeks. All right, we'll move on. Chris Cole.
Hey, Chris Cole, Bryan University, man. First off, appreciate you sharing, man, for sure. Appreciate you sharing. I got a question just in general, or while you were going through the process. So you talk about having to go to work, having to deal with your stuff, then, talking to some of the players about their stuff. How did you deal with, or where is the time for you to deal with the stuff that you internalized? Because you talk about taking it out on your wife or your baby mother at the time. I forgot who you was talking about, but
it wasn't my baby mother. But yeah, I got
you. Yeah, so taking it out on your wife at the time. So the stuff that you were dealing with, where do you put that? Where do you have time to deal with that, or how do you deal with it?
So that, again, like I tried to write this story like and be as real as I possibly could, right? And so, I didn't want anyone to think that this was easy, that I was a soldier throughout, right? I'm honest, right? Again, I talk about thinking about suicide. I talk about like wearing a mask, right? And especially like as a Black man, we like, that's something that we have kind of mastered, being in certain spaces and not really sharing how we truly feel, right? So it was important that I pen it, and I said it earlier a little bit, talking about the difference between being present and having presence, right? It was important that I say that the one person I was supposed to protect through all of this, I ended up dumping everything on. Like being angry. I wanted to come home from work when it was quiet and put my feet up and have her rub my head and put her arm around me and tell me everything was going to be okay, right? And because that wasn't her approach, I just dumped everything on her. I got quiet, right? I got angry. I was bitter. Like my answers were like short. I never checked in on her and asked her, how you doing? You okay? How was your day? Right? And I gave all the other spaces so much, from work to the kids, so much, to where that I just felt it was okay that she get the short end of the stick. So work was almost like an escape, doing like scouting reports and preparing my sorters for the next game and going on the road and helping the guys and helping Brad. Like that was almost my escape. And then when I got home, like that's when everything came out after the kids went to bed. I would get up in the mornings. If we were home, even if we got in at 3 a.m, 6 o'clock, I'm up because I'm driving the kids to school, no matter what, right? And we in the car and we talk about everything from homework to music to road trip to games that they got coming up and everything. And I go to their soccer games, or I'm calling my oldest kids who were working, one in New York and one in Philadelphia, and just being what I'm supposed to be to them. But really, like I failed at being the spouse that she needed me to be. And because again, I just never got to the point where I could just say, Aida, I'm so scared. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, I'm stressed out. Like, I can't believe I got us in this position. Like, can I do anything to help you through this? Like, I was giving to so many people throughout all of this. I wanted her to give to me. And to be honest with you, she didn't really have it. Can't imagine. Like, she's a nurturer by nature, right? She worries about the house and she does. I mean, she worked, she's a business owner, and she still service us. She's not perfect, but she's been unreal through it all. And I ain't give her what she needed. And so that was important that I write it, that I wrote about that from a husband standpoint, from a Black husband standpoint, from a father standpoint, that I talk about 4 generations of women like being the backbones of the Allen family household, right? From my great-great-grandmother and her dealing with a cycle of dysfunction where her daughter was molested by her husband and had a baby, right? And how she still kept the family together. And then fast forward, my great-grandmother having to leave to help provide for the house. And then fast forward, my grandmother going to work as a housekeeper so that at one point she could help take care of 22 people in the house, right? So my mother being a housekeeper, cleaning up hotel rooms and toilets and vacuuming floors and making beds and making the max $11,000 a year to put my sister and I through college, right? To finally getting married myself and not being what she deserved after witnessing and having privy to the history of just the strength or the lack of support there was of the women in my family. How could I do that? Like, how could she be begging for me to be present? I mean, for me to have presence, And so this is just one of the things, in the book that my case helped bring to light, and not, again, to be married for 22 years, for us, to be honest with you, I don't know another couple, a Black couple, I'm gonna be honest with you, that's 47, right, and has been married for 22 years. I don't, and I'm not saying it don't exist, right, and I'm not saying it's been easy, but there's a certain element, her, through it all, just her foundation, right, her relationship with God. A lot of times we think, we pray, right, or things get answered because of our prayers. But to be honest with you, you say, yeah, I heard the pastor say, yeah, because I had a praying grandmother, right? But she was on her knees, violently praying, keep me covered on the days I wasn't there. Even when I was doing her wrong, right? Even when I wasn't what I was supposed to be, she still was praying for me. And so I survived this, because it was because of her relationship with him and how faithful and committed, dedicated she's been to her house, her marriage, her children, ultimately her God. So I can't say that this was nothing. Yeah, I rumbled the government and spanked it and I'm standing. No, I would be lying to you. Certain pockets where I wasn't what I was supposed to be.
Next question, Jamar Betts. And we got two more questions after that. Pooh.
Okay.
Coach, how you doing? Jamar Betts. I'm a high school coach down here at the DMV, and I think it was last winter, your son was playing in a tournament. He was doing the All-Star Weekend down here at the St. James. I think you and I met down there. But and I'm a good friend with Book Richardson, and through the whole ordeal that he was going through, what were you thinking when you were kind of going through this, whole ordeal with the FBI? You can't really talk about your case out there. And then you would just hear all of the media stuff and all of the extra stuff and things. I know it's tough because you can't really defend yourself, right? I mean, and it's guilty until proven innocent and things like that. And even though you admitted it, they kind of make it, the media kind of pushes it out that you're just this awful person when you just make a mistake. How did you deal with that, internalize that? And how do you relate something like that to your kids?
So one thing that helped me through all of the narratives that was put out there, I remember Sports Illustrated article, the guy who and one part of the article, he said, yeah, he always asks people to let him hold something anytime he sees them, right? And so he was trying to allude it like, I'm a beggar, right? Like I'm always asking people for money. But in Philly, that's the way we greet people. Like I see Tyson Willow, and I'm like, Tyson, what's up? Let me hold something. It's not any, and that's like kind of what gets lost in the culture sometimes when you have a person who's trying to not necessarily summarize, but who's trying to make sense of something that they have no understanding of the context of, right? But why I didn't lose my mind about all the narratives that was put out there was because I owned it. I did it. And I put myself in this position to be written about. And so I couldn't be mad or upset, right? And again, like I totally about what was written, because it was the truth. Most of it was the truth. And when I say most of it, meaning the core of it, I committed a crime. I accepted the money. And how they penned it around, again, like, I could say to you, I didn't take $300,000, but I get that number and the shock of that announcement, what it does to the people that's consuming, the information. I didn't, like, I could say, you know what, I jumped on a plane with him as he was flying back to Florida, and the cost of that flight, they put on my jacket as well. You know what I'm saying? Or, yeah, I went down there, and every time I stayed in a hotel, whatever that cost was, they put on my jacket, as well. But the reality of it is, I did jump on a plane. I did stay in a hotel. So me getting upset at the number, after every time I took a deep breath, it was like, well, what you gonna get upset about? You put yourself in this position. And so, I'm quite sure, like, like there's so many people that talked about it, whispered about it, or read it and took it to be the truth. And there's a lot of it, a lot of truth in there. But again, I go back to what I say, like, people said God can give you the peace that surpasses all understanding, and I didn't really know what that was until He allowed me to just walk in certain spaces and still smile and still, like, try to touch people and still be focused on what I needed to focus on. And that I can't say, like, I think about it, like, damn, that's crazy, Lord. You're a funny boy. You know what I'm saying? So, they wrote what they wrote. I put myself in that position to be written about, and I ain't mad at Mike Jensen, who's a reporter from Philadelphia Inquirer, wrote an article killing me. I never read the article, but a couple people told me about it. Killing me. I mean, killing me, right? And then we had another group that had a Zoom, and he was coming on as one of the guest speakers. And someone must have told him that I was a part of the group. And he told the guy running, he was like, yeah, Jerome's going to be on there. And I told him, I was like, man, I'm not mad at him. He was doing his job. Like I said, he was just doing his job. I mean, if he had a hidden agenda or whatever, it's one thing, but, he was doing his job. He was supposed to write what he wanted to write. And I think having that perspective helped me to be able to just like say, man, it is what it is.
Last question. Tyson Wheeler.
Cool. What's up, baby? Appreciate you.
Wheeler.
What's up, man? I appreciate you coming on. I mean, listening to you speak tonight, it makes me emotional, and because I've known you for a while. You know, you've been a really good friend to me. Sorry, I'm getting emotional, but you know, you were my old head. Always took care of me. But my question for you is,
It's gonna make me cry. Tyson.
You're my man. You're my man. You know, we go through a lot trying to take care of our family. And hindsight is 20/20. What do you think your biggest missteps were? You know, I think you answered it tonight. Do you think taking your coaching, taking the head coaching job too early when you weren't ready, or taking the money to provide for your family? And the reason why I asked that is because, I got injured at 29, and I tore my Achilles. You talked about Achilles earlier, getting your ankle brace off. And I tried to come back early because I wanted to provide for my family. And it was, I was having my best season of my career. But in hindsight, I should have waited and took my time to come back. So do you think that maybe if you didn't take the head coaching job right away, got some more experience, you would have had a longer career as a head coach and none of this would have happened?
It's a good question. I said in the book, I know I keep saying I said in the book, right? But one of my prayers was, Lord, if you knew I wasn't ready for this, why did you give it to me, right? Like I had that conversation with him. And I don't necessarily think that was the case, right? Now, I don't think I had the character to match the elevation. That really was the issue. And so I talked about, right, the further I got away from the elevation, like in the moment, I'm like, man, can you believe this? Like somebody saw something in me that made them comfortable enough to say, you could run this program, right? And so all the things that I had done to be in alignment with that decision, as once I sat down, now I'm starting to move and still coach the way I coached and the details of the game and spacing and defending and rebounding and all that stuff. And but just my whole aura kind of was like I got out of alignment. So for things, it was almost as if God was like, I know what your burdens are that you're trying to address. I know you genuinely want the best for these kids. And Tyson, again, I'm spending money out of my own pocket and kind of like ignoring all the rules with compliance. And I'm having kids from the city, take classes at Wharton, right? And got the STEM program and all of these things. I'm paying students on campus to the same stuff that they learning from Wharton to build curriculums and lesson plans to teach kids, inner city kids. Cause I'm like, man, Penn don't care about the kids from the city, right? And I'm one of these kids. If I was ass and I couldn't play ball, I never would have had the opportunity to be exposed to all of this. I'm gonna figure out how to still help, right? And I started like with my position moving like I was immune to the processes and procedures that had to go in place with like whether it was getting the kid admitted or just moving about. Again, I know that compliance don't allow you to do certain things. If they're 7th grade or higher, they're considered a recruitable athlete, but I'm ignoring it because like I'm gonna help some kids. And Aida told me, my wife, she was just like, all the stuff you're trying to do, that ain't of God. That's you. That's you and your ego. And I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like whatever the case may be, right? And so as things progressed, like now I'm starting to believe that I'm operating in my own strength. Like I lost sight of the fact that look what he did. His swiftness and acceleration. Again, I said it. Disney couldn't wrote that script. That's not happening, especially to no black coach. It's not happening. You're not getting no head coaching job in 3 months, whether you're ready or not, right? And so to be there and to be like, oh well, you know, Coach Dump made sure I had summer jobs, and I'm telling these parents that I'm gonna help their kids get jobs, and all these people calling me, you know what I'm saying, to try to help, you know, this person, you know, trying to get in, this person get in, and I'm helping all these people. Now here go the people I'm trying to help, they ain't trying to help. Oh, fuck that, right? It's really like God's way of showing me like, you got some stuff going on inside of you that we need to address, and you let go of my hand, right? And so the combination of that all came out and the decisions that I made, right? Me thinking like, oh, I got her in the pen and he ain't gonna help. And the reality is she really got her own self in the pen. Like she still mirrored the profile of a prospective pen applicant, right? But I'm acting like almost as if like I'm starting to idolize myself, like as if I'm God, right? And again, the one story that is in the book, but kind of I can relate to it is like after going through it, you know, I talked about David and Goliath, right? And when Samuel went to Jesse's house and to find the new king of Israel, and his 7 sons come out, right? And it's like, nah, but the shepherd, right, is outside. They asked him to come in. Samuel's like, it's David, right? It's him, right? And again, I equated to me being a volunteer assistant and the AD picking me. And again, I'm not equating myself to David, but I'm just saying in terms of being handpicked, right? But yet and still, like, you know, David, mighty warrior, became king of Israel, great warrior, went on to script 73 Psalms, right? But he was a murderer and an adulterer, right? So he killed Bathsheba's husband, got him killed, and like got her pregnant, right? So despite of those things, God still knew that he was a man after his own heart. He still penned some of the Psalms that we recite today. So with that being said, what it made me say was that even in my failure in character, he still can use me. And that was kind of like the one thing that really kept pushing me towards writing this book, because we would think like when you're guilty, you think that you don't deserve mercy, you don't deserve grace, you don't deserve to still be used as an instrument, you know, by him. But that story kind of is like, despite of all of that, right? Like I just kept praying, Lord, still you can, you know, use me. Now I wanted him to use me the way I wanted him to use me, right? But I kept praying that. And so, you know, I think I had enough to still be there, but I let go of his hand and I started moving like I was operating in my own strength, and that was my demise.
Gotcha. Appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Pooh, man, I'm usually not at a loss for words, but I'm truly humbled and very, very appreciative of the fact that a month ago I reached out to you and you afforded me the opportunity to read an advanced copy of your book. And 4 weeks later, you're here. And we are so connected because we talk almost on a daily basis. We share information and we share stuff, and I'm better because you came on tonight. Well, I'm better because 4 weeks ago you afforded me that opportunity. But I'm even better tonight, and I know that the Living Trophy Zoom is even better tonight because you came on here and you were authentically who you are, and you were totally transparent. And I just want to read one quote, you know, to you as we depart from here. It says, speak in such a way that people love to listen to you, and then listen in such a way that people love to speak to you. And if you continue to do what you're doing, is staying on, in holding God's hand and continue to share your story and share your truth, you're going to continue to do what you set out to do a long time ago with all those other organizations that you started. You're going to continue to impact lives, and you're going to continue to pour into people and continue to be the ladle that God has called you to be. And that's what our Living Trophy is, that you're impacting lives. And that's what Living Trophy stands for. We all want to win championships, but more importantly, we want to touch people's lives and impact lives, and we want to create living trophies. So I'm humbled, man. I'm so thankful that you came on here tonight. You've been on for 2 hours, man, and you were just so transparent and so honest, and you said you were going to be, and you lived up to that. And for that, I cannot thank you enough for doing that. You were tremendous. And I'm going to make sure that everybody that I come in contact with knows, and when your book hits, they need to get in line, to buy that book, because Tyson said it best. We see in you a lot of ourselves. And I think that's what Tyson's tears were about, was we have all fallen short of God's grace, and we've humbled ourselves to get back into his grace and his mercy. And it's because you stood up and said, hey, I did make a mistake, and I'm accountable for that mistake. And I want the world to know of my mistake, that I'm going to touch more people's lives than I could ever even imagine. So, brother, I am so thankful and so humbled that you came on here tonight, and count you in my circle of friends, and continue to pray for you as you continue to serve the Lord that we all try to serve. So thank you very much.
I appreciate you, Kevin, and I appreciate everybody for just allowing me to share, and if there's anything that I could do for for anybody on here, don't hesitate to reach out. I can kind of give. I don't know if I can put it in a group chat or whatever.
You can put it in the chat. That'd be great. And then the other people that jumped off will reach out and touch base with me, because that's what we do, man. We just want to continue to share this platform that we have, to touch lives, man.
We are like less than 2 weeks away from the release date, and I'm excited. Just keep us in prayer. And the lady, I don't know if you can see her up on the screen. She's to my far left. That's Deborah Fries right there, and
hey, Deborah.
She is just amazing. I wouldn't be in this position to speak to y'all right now if it wasn't for her. And yeah, like I said, if I could do anything for anybody, I'm putting it in the chat now. Just don't hesitate to reach out. And thank you again.
Absolutely. Now go win the game, all right?
We got a tough one tomorrow. We got Toronto. So. I'm gonna be up all night.